This is Dr. Gigi Sabbat, and you're listening to the Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Dr. Jamil. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gigi. Happy to be with you, and thank you to our listeners. Really, it's a privilege.
Likewise, such an honor to be here with you as well. Now, can you start off by telling us more about you and where are you from, Jamil?
Yeah. So from New York, and I've been traveling the last 8 months or so, 6 months or so, and we got the trip. My girlfriend and I will be traveling the rest of the year, and so I'm currently coming to you live from an Airbnb in Utah. And I was just telling Dr. Gigi that we were visiting Zion National Park, and it's absolutely stunning and breathtakingly gorgeous, and the best hikes I've ever done in my life. Highly recommend it. And so a little bit about me and what I do. My work is the intersection between high performance and healing. I love people. I love seeing people lit up, in love with themselves and in love with their life. And I find that there are these invisible performance blocks emotionally, mentally, and energetically that until we recognize that they're there, we're often not conscious of them. They sabotage the success that we could be creating. And we're playing at, let's say, 20%, 40% of our potential. And when you release those, it's just like miracles start getting created in people's lives over and over again. And what seemed like a 10-year goal comes true in about 10 months. And I've seen that happen so many times. And it's the biggest privilege to get to partner with people to create the life that they dream of. My work is a combination of medicine, which is naturopathic medicine, holistic healing, energy healing, life transformation coaching, hypnosis, and a bunch of other things combined together to create that physical, emotional, mental, and energetic spiritual transformation.
Wow, absolutely amazing. Now, Dr. Jamil, what inspired you to go into the medical field per se?
So it began when I was younger. So my father was a family practice physician. My dad was one of 8 kids. Of the 8, 6 of them were doctors, 1 lawyer, 1 attorney, 5 medical doctors. And he was also one of probably 30 something cousins. Of the 30, maybe 18 of them, 20 of them were medical doctors. So I was completely surrounded by the medical profession, all of my life. And I knew when I was a kid, I want to be like my dad. Like I wanted to be a physician. And then when I was about 14, I was interested in holistic healing, and it stemmed from, I was a track athlete. I was running. I was sick all the time. I didn't know why. And then my intuition kicked in one day, and it just was very clear. It said, it's your diet. The reason why you're so slow, the reason why you're getting sick all the time, it's your diet. Now, I had no reason to ever think that. No one in my life spoke about nutrition or holistic medicine or anything like that. And I listened to it, and I went online, did some Google searching, and I figured out that essentially everything that I was putting into my body was bad for me. And then so I started to make some changes, some overnight, literally, and some over the course of a couple of years. Within a few weeks and months, stopped getting sick. I got a lot faster, and acne started clearing up, and I slept better, and everything was getting better. And I started thinking, wow, like what else is here? And I got obsessed with holistic healing, nutrition, mind-body medicine, environmental health, and all these different things. And I learned from doctors from around the world, bought their books, watched their videos, CDs, DVDs, you name it. And I got so enamored with helping people to truly heal, not just be more of like the Band-Aid fix of suppression. Suppression has its place, but not as the primary thing. And that is often the way conventional healing goes. And so that was the beginning for me. And that was the initial, like, let's say, impetus. And then I just kept every day, every year, wanting to learn as much as I could about how people heal. Then that led to the emotional side of relationships, mental and emotional well-being. Then it led to religion and all the different world religions and spiritualities. Then it led into the energy work. I went to medical school, started adding it all together. And it just kept building and building to create true health in a holistic sense, not just from the body, but like I said, all the different pillars.
Wow, very intriguing. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Jamil. Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you were in track as well, and I have started running myself coming off a knee injury here. Yeah, I ran a 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon, and now training for a triathlon. So let's talk about running for a moment.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know, right? What message do you have for an individual who may have just started running and they feel as though maybe they can't do it? What message do you have for an individual?
So first, I want to just acknowledge you. No one's ever asked me that, so I love that that's coming up right now. So track was such a beautiful 4-year. I did it in high school, so it was cross country and track. I was from New York, and so there's a winter season, obviously. So it's indoor and outdoor track. Indoor track is an indoor actual half of 200-meter track, and so we had cross country first, And I joined that more as like I didn't make the baseball team. And that was just devastating for me. And my friend said, hey, I'm going to join the cross country team if you want to join. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, why not? And I joined, and I ended up making friends that I still have to this day. However many years later, I still have so many lessons that I've learned. And so to answer your question, first, I would come from a space of one of the things I love about running is that, yeah, you are competing against other people, but like any sport, but it's really obvious in track, you're competing against yourself and what you're capable of and what you've done before. So if I got on the track, I was an 800-meter runner predominantly, so a half mile. And if I'm going to get on the track, yeah, I'm racing, 8, 10 other people, whatever it might be. But I also know what I ran last time. I know what my PR is, my personal record, and I want to beat that. And so if I beat my best time, but I came in last because the people I ran against were that much better than me, that'd be okay. I'd be thrilled. That's like, oh, wow. Yeah, I came in last, but I beat every version of me. And so there's something about that I really like. And track, like any sport, the more you put in, the more you get out. And so actually showing up to practice, and the way you practice will show up in the way you compete. There's an old adage, I think it's a Spartan phrase: the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. And the idea that some people go to track practice or cross country practice and they kind of fool around. So they practice at maybe like 50% of their capacity, but they just expect to show up on race day and just be incredible. But if you're practicing with like 50% capacity, don't expect yourself to get that much better. But if when you go to practice, you really leave it all on the line, that's when week by week, you'll be getting better. Obviously, you have to rest hard as well and recover and all these things. But from a practice component, take it sincerely, take your practice and give it everything you've got, and ask advice. You have coaches, you have team members that are, let's say, more advanced or older than you or faster than you. Maybe there's some stretching, maybe there's some, running tips they can give you. Each race has a strategy. Do you run the turn? Do you run the straightaway? Like, how do you do it in the most effective way? And it's like anything, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out. And so that's what's coming to me right now.
Wow, that's very powerful. Powerful words of wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Jamil. Yeah. Now, you are a high performer now, and you've also assisted other high performers. Tell us a little bit more about your experience.
Yeah, sure. I'll speak to it in generally, and then you can hone me in depending on where you're wanting to go there. So I want to first define some terms. So the people I work with are leaders, champions, and high performers. And some people hear those terms and the voice in their head will say something like, I really wish I could be, a leader, a champion, or a high performer. And in my mind, the challenge there is that person is saying you're either born that way or you're not. Versus the way I look at it and the way I define it is a leader, a champion, a high performer. These are identities that you can choose to take on moment to moment to moment. They're always available to you. And you're already likely, if you're listening to a podcast like this, being one or more of those things in one or more areas of life. When I think about a leader, it's a person who says, it's not just about me, it's about we. It's about my family, my company, my community, depending on the size of their vision, the country, the world. When I think about a high performer, it's a person who says, I want to be the best that I can be at the things that matter most to me. And when I think about a champion, it's a person who says, I want to be the best, period. So it's not just about me, I want to beat everybody else. And so from that space, those types of people who choose to identify as that, what they're striving for, the ripple of impact they have in the world, the work ethic, the level of commitment, that's very attractive and appealing to me because that's the same standard I hold myself to. So that's why I choose to work with those individuals. And I'll pause there to see if you want to take that question in any other way.
Absolutely incredible. Now, we spoke about winning in regards to high performers. Let's talk about losing for a little bit and failure. What if someone has lost and they feel like a failure, Dr. Jamil? What message do you have for that individual?
Well, great question. So failure is an interesting word. So, and in the same context, everything is an interesting word. And this is why. Language is simultaneously the most important thing, and it's completely meaningless because words don't have any meaning in and of themselves beyond the meaning you give them. And at the same time, language creates, and the way you describe your experience becomes your experience. So how do you define failure? If you define failure as I tried and I didn't get the result that I wanted, that's a very limited definition. So I'll give you an example. I encourage my clients to step into like a scientist doing an experiment. If you're a chemist and you're in the lab and you got your beaker, your test tube, you got your little pipette, and you drop the little thing, a drop into the liquid. And in your mind, your hypothesis is, I'm going to add this chemical to this chemical beaker, and it's going to turn blue. And then you do it. And it's like a cartoon where you drop it in, and instead of turning blue, it turns red. And then it bubbles, and then it blows up, and then your hair is standing up, and you got like the burn marks on your face. And the scientist goes, wow. And then the scientist goes, got it. They write on the notebook, don't do that. And the idea is like, if I'm wanting this result, don't do what I just did, because that didn't get there. In that sense, there's no failed experiment. I tried something, I got a result, period. Now, is it the result I wanted? If it's not the result I wanted, there's some level of input that was not correct in the sense that it doesn't map to the outcome that I want. So if somebody is saying, I failed at something, and they're really discouraged about it, they're often taking it personally and they're identifying. So it's not just I failed, it's I am a failure. And now it feels more of like a permanent thing. It's not that an effort thing, it's a me thing. Another way of saying it is this applies to anybody, but I'll use it in the context of children. If a child, let's say, goes to school and they get an A on a test, depending on how you praise them, that can lead to some challenging situations in the future. If you say, little Timmy got an A, and you say, hey, Timmy, that's so wonderful. You got an A. It's because you're smart. That's actually very detrimental, because then the next time Timmy takes a test, if Timmy gets a B or a C, it's because he's dumb. But if Timmy gets an A and you say, Timmy, I'm so proud of you. I can see that you really applied yourself and you put in a lot of effort and you studied for this. Then the next time, if Timmy gets a C, it's not because he's dumb. It's because he didn't study right or he didn't apply himself. It's the effort that you praise, not the intelligence, right? And so in a similar way, if somebody is failing in that context where they're trying and they're not getting what they want, I would shift the definition to, I am going to put in effort with a desired result in mind. If I don't get the result in mind, I'm going to take it as feedback, not failure. And the feedback is saying, this is the result that I created, desirable or not. What was I doing? What was I thinking? How did I approach it? What was the motivation? How present was I? Like, what are all the ingredients that went into the creation that was this result? And then own it. Own that, okay, either I gave it everything I had and I just wasn't good enough in the moment, but recognize that it's not that you aren't good enough. It's that as like a soul, as a human being, it's not that. It's that your skill set wasn't good enough. And that's fine. And so because I can be enhanced. And so the moment you recognize, all right, I created the result here, own it, you created it. So I've got this result, not what I wanted. Perfect. Now that I know that, I'm going to tweak it and try again. And when I try again, I'm going to get new feedback, because it's feedback, not failure. And every time I get the new feedback, if I'm learning from each attempt, the feedback will keep getting better and I'll keep getting closer to what it is that I want. And you're not getting discouraged because you're more getting excited that each time you're learning, you're growing and you're getting better. And you're not taking it personally, which removes a lot of the emotional pain of failure.
I love it. And you encourage others to try. That's very powerful, Dr. Jamil. And I remember sitting there with the word try, but it's absolutely correct. You need to be able to try, because if you don't try, how will you ever really know? So thank you so much.
If I can speak to that too. So for any of our Star Wars fans, there's a Yoda quote where Yoda says, do or do not, there is no try. There is a time for what Yoda says, and Yoda's like the Grand Master, Jedi, like the best there is. But there is a time for try as well. So do or do not applies when it comes to effort. If I tell you, Gigi, track practice is tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, let's say at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., will you be there? The answer is yes or no. The answer is not, I'll try. Because you're either going to be there or you're not. But if I say, will you win the race on Saturday? You really can't say yes to that. You can say, I'll try. Because when it comes to an outcome, there are certain factors that are out of your control. You mentioned practicing for 5K, 10K, half marathon, full marathon. So if I say, Gigi, are you going to win the marathon? Now, you might be like one of the best people there, and it's a possibility that you could win. But if you say yes, you can't know that. You might say yes from just like a pump up self-belief kind of thing, But you can't know that. But if I say, Gigi, will you train 3 to 5 days a week, go to bed at this time and eat this way? That's a yes or no. Like when it comes to outcome, there's only try. When it comes to process, there's do or do not.
I love how you explained it. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. Very powerful. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about stress. What message do you have for an individual who may feel stressed?
Yeah, another great question. And so one of the areas that I play in my background is language. And I said earlier, language in our experience creates our experience. But again, the words only have the meaning we give them. And we've been conditioned in our society to create a certain meaning to certain words. So for example, somebody might say the word stress. Is that good or bad? Most people would say it's bad because they have a negative connotation to it. But when you go to the gym and you work out or you run and you get better, well, your muscles are getting put under stress, but that's how you get stronger. So people will, yeah, no, in that context, it's a positive, right? So stress is not good or bad. It's a neutral thing, and depending on how you mean it. So the way most people I have found when they say I'm feeling a lot of stress, they don't mean like my muscles are sore because they mean a mental and emotional stress. Now, I say what I'm about to say with the utmost love and respect for everyone listening. I honor that you are going through potentially some challenging times right now. And if not right now, you've been through challenging times in the past, and potentially there's some to come. And I honor and I validate however you're feeling. And with that in mind, it's keeping in mind there is no such thing as a stressful experience. There's no such thing as a stressful job. Because what you call a stressful experience, somebody else considers a calm or a neutral experience. Because whatever you label something, that's what it is for you, but it's not what it is in and of itself. So for example, my phone is right here, and this is as far as I can tell, it's a dark blue phone case. I could say, this phone case is really a beautiful color. But what if somebody hates blue? They're going to say this is a really ugly phone case. So who's right? We're both right in our own experience. There's no such thing as a stressful job. There is such a thing as you having a stressful experience of your job. But it's not the job, it's your experience of it. And so your experience of it is based on your creation. It's based on the story that you tell yourself about it. And so when you think about, I am feeling a lot of stress, most of us look outside and we say, that person, that situation, that thing, that stressed me out. In my mind, I come from a space of wanting to empower people as much as possible. And you disempower yourself when you say, so-and-so or that experience or the economy made me feel a certain way. So it's saying, I am the creator of my life experience. And so because I'm the creator of it, whatever I'm feeling in the moment, I can, and I get it because I've been this person in the past, I've been conditioned to say so-and-so made me, or I'm sad because of that. But it's not, I'm stressed because that situation is happening. It's, I'm stressed because I'm telling myself a story and buying into it and saying it's true. And then because it's true, that means A, B, and C. So for example, somebody might say, I lost my job. Now, is that stressful? In and of itself, it's neutral because everything is neutral. Then we apply meaning to it as a human being. And in my specific context, it might be, well, I lost my job. So now I can't pay my bills. And now I lose my house, or I lose my apartment, or I can't put food on the table, or whatever it might be. Now, is that stressful? And I don't mean to make it sound robotic, because I really want people to connect to like as close to objective truth as we can get here, because that's what actually creates freedom. Is you losing your home stressful? In and of itself, no, that's neutral. It's the story about why you don't want to and why it would be devastating if you did. That's what's creating your stress. Because somebody else goes, I lost my job, and that sucks. And, I've had this idea to go out on my own and start my own business, but I've been afraid to quit. So they just like kicked me out. So maybe I can go do that. Or somebody else says, I really like that job, and they let me go. But now it's an opportunity for the next chapter, whatever that might be. And I come from a space of, we can choose, how do we want to perceive life? And if we choose to perceive life as life is happening to us, it puts us at victim to life. Life is happening to me. It's doing it to me. I can't do anything about it. But if it is life is happening through me, life is happening for me, We've all had the experience of something happens, we label it as bad, and then fast forward a week, a month, a year, a decade, and there's somebody in your world right now. So for example, you're in a relationship, you really care about this person, they break up with you. Is that a bad thing? In the short term, in that moment, yes, from your paradigm. You're devastated. Why'd this happen? I'm never going to love again. Fast forward 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Let's say now you're in a new relationship. Maybe you married that person. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you're happier than you've ever been. And you go, this is my person. Well, you only met that person because the previous person dumped you. So is that previous person dumping you a bad thing? Or did they do one of the biggest favors for you of your entire life? So in a macro sense, we call things bad or good, but we don't know because we don't know what it's going to lead to. And so I come from a space of let's reserve the judgment. Let's not call it good or bad. Let's just play with what is. This is what's happening. I have this amount of money in the account. I've got this job or I don't. This person's with the relationship or it's not. The scale says this is how much I weigh. The car has a flat tire. Like whatever reality is, accept it. It doesn't mean you stay there, but you accept it. And then you go, now, given that this is what life is showing me right now, what do I want to do about it? What boundary do I want to enforce? What action do I want to take? What invitation or request do I want to make or ask for? There's always something you can do. But when we disempower ourselves and say, I feel this way, if I said right now, Gigi, let's say after this, somebody said to me, Jamil, you seem really sad. And I say, I am. And then they go, why? And I say, well, Gigi said something to me and it really disappointed me. And I'm just going to feel sad until she apologizes. But what if I never hear from you again? Am I just going to feel sad the rest of my life? I've created a rule unconsciously. I will feel sad until I get an apology. That's my created rule, nothing to do with reality. So I will give myself permission to let this go or to move on once I get the apology that I have deemed necessary. But that's my creation. What if I chose to just let it go and say, you know what, maybe she was having a rough day or maybe whatever, but I'm not going to carry that around with me. That's always up to me. So as it relates to stress, bringing it home, there's a Viktor Frankl quote. Viktor Frankl was a Jewish physician during the Holocaust. He wrote a book, several books, but one that's very, very famous called Man's Search for Meaning. Phenomenal book, very eye-opening. You see what it was like to be a Jewish person in the Holocaust. And in the book, he says, there was two things he says that stand out here to me. One is between stimulus and response, between what happens, this is my version, between what happens and what you do about it, there's a space. And in that space is your ability to choose your response. And in your choice lies your destiny, where you end up. Another way of saying it, he says in the book, there was one freedom the Nazis could not take away. The last of the human freedoms, which was the ability to choose your response, the ability to choose who you're going to be. And so when someone tells me, I'm human too. When someone tells me I'm really stressed out, I get it. I know what they mean, and I'm willing to hold some space. But if they're my client and they're actually asking for my support, I'm going to call them out on stories that they're not even realizing that they're buying into because you're creating your own stress. Someone tells me I'm feeling a lot of pressure. I might be playful with them and say, you mean like barometric pressure, like bottom of the ocean, crushing? You mean like you're in space? Because that's real pressure. That's not what they mean. They mean mental and emotional pressure. But where does that pressure come from? A story that you have bought into about a way you need to be or a circumstance has to go a certain way, but none of that's real. It's all made up, which is why the moment you let it go, the pressure goes away. And then you go, how could I have the pressure one moment and it's gone the next moment? Because the experience is real, but the pressure itself is not. Stress, pressure, any other word you could think of is just a concept. It isn't real. And the moment you realize that, you're free.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. Everything you said is truly an eye-opener and very powerful. Thank you. Yeah, now, we do have Manny listening in. Thank you so much for listening in, Manny. We appreciate you. And Manny says, Gigi, I'd like to ask Dr. Jamil, how does he make time count? Well, Dr. Jamil, take it away.
Yeah. Hey, Manny. Great to have you. Thank you so much for the question. I do appreciate it. I'm going to answer this the way that I think you mean it. And please feel free to ask it again if I miss it. So how do I make time count? First, I have a question to pose to you and everyone listening. I want you to think about this. How much time do you have left? And we all have the same answer. I don't know. And so if I have the hourglass that is metaphorically equivalent, representing you, like your life, turned it upside down the moment you were born, sand started to fall. And once the top runs out, this physical existence ends. Now, how much sand do you have left? You don't know. So then the question is, with how much intention am I bringing to the moment? And is what I'm doing right now worth it? Steve Jobs had a great quote where he says, every day I wake up in the morning, I look myself in the mirror and I ask myself, if today was my last day on this earth, would I want to do what I'm about to do? And if the answer is no, too many days in a row, I know something needs to change. Again, I'll give you another example. About 3 years ago, I was at home with family, and I had an uncle and an aunt. They lived in New York when I was growing up. They moved to Virginia when I was like high school-ish. They came back in my late 20s, and I got to spend some time with them. And early 30s, actually, got to spend some time with them. It was beautiful. They came in on a Monday. They left, I think, the following week. Every night around 7, 8 p.m., we met up in the living room, and there was 4 of us. And we just spoke until maybe midnight. Every day, we were laughing, we were crying, we were telling stories. We were just connecting. We never ran out of anything to talk about. It was so beautiful. Best conversations I've ever had with them. And I've known them since I was a baby. Then they leave, and I'm waving as they leave the driveway. And this thought comes into my mind, which I was so grateful for. The thought is, and it was, if that was the last time I ever saw my uncle and aunt, that was worthy of being the last time. So my question for you is, the last time you were working, the last time you were with your spouse or partner, if you have one, the last time you were with your child, the last time you cooked a meal, the last time you did whatever you did, was it worthy of being the last time? Whatever you just produced as a piece of work, if that was what you were going to be known for, are you proud of it? Does it represent your best? Or would you want to have another crack at it because you really kind of just did what you could to get by? And when you realize that most of the time, we don't live our life intentionally, we're not deliberate moment to moment. I come from a space of every day could be my last. And so it's balancing, having a plan, going after what I want in the future, knowing that'll take time, but also recognizing the most important thing is how I live right now. The most important thing is this present moment and how I choose to show up. And if I do that, every moment takes care of itself. And I'll end it on this, to your question. I often tell people in text messages, emails, the way I close almost every message I send is, create a meaningful day. All my love, Jamil. And if I don't know if I'm going to see the person ever, I might say, create a meaningful life. And somebody said to me one time, how do I do that? And I was like, that's a beautiful question. I said, you create a meaningful life by creating a meaningful day. And you create a meaningful day by creating a meaningful moment. And a meaningful moment is a moment where you take an action that's in alignment with who you want to be and where you want to go and what you want to, do and all these things. When you do that moment to moment to moment, it's the kind of day that when you go to sleep at night, that head hits the pillow, there's this thought, wow, like what a day. And if this was my last day, that was worth it. Now you do a series of those kind of days forever, you create a meaningful life. And so how do you make time count? Focus on this moment right now. That's the only thing you ever have to do, because the present moment is always pregnant with the next moment. So if you want it better tomorrow, you need it better today. And if you want it better today, you need it better now. That's the only thing you ever have control over.
Wow. Very powerful. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. And you also talk about the living per se, and not just that, but living as though it's your last day. And I think it's so important because, and I say this all the time. I was speaking with a gentleman. We were on a call, and he was going to speak at one of our conferences. And then right before the conference, I get a call from his wife saying he's no longer with us. And so we had a really great conversation. And here's the thing, we never got to hear him speak at the conference. And again, you never know. Life is very short. And so that's why be in the present moment, like you said, it's so important, Dr. Jamil. I second what you say, because it's very true. You just never know. And you don't know if you're going to see that person again. You just don't know. And so be in the present moment. It's very true. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil.
Yeah.
Now, Manny here, he comments, he says, spot on, great answer. Intentionality is a choice. We all need to be aware that those moments could be our last ones. As a fellow New Yorker, you get it. Thank you for being real. You, my friend, are hashtag MTC. You have to tell us what MTC is, Manny.
Yeah, please do.
Yes, yes. Well, Dr. Jamil, on a lighter note, tell us what gives you joy?
Yeah, you have phenomenal questions, Gigi. I love this. And it's like, it's all over in a beautiful way. So what brings me joy? Right now in this Airbnb, I'm looking, and so I have this beautiful window right outside the bedroom, and we're on this farm, and like there's this beautiful nature. It snowed a little bit today. I told you that earlier. Now the room that I'm in, the way they decorated it, this room is all full of African decorations because they lived in Africa for several years. The other room is filled with Hawaiian decorations, and that is because the guy's from Hawaii. And I sat there and I'm like, wow, like this brings me joy. I love seeing when people create beauty, when people create the magical spaces together. I love seeing people lit up and enthusiastic about what they do. I just mentioned at the start, I've been traveling with my girlfriend and we were just in Arizona. I used to live there for 5 years, and we went to Sedona, beautiful place. And I got to meet my girlfriend's friend and her husband, and he's an architect. And I don't know much about architecture. And so I'm like, tell me about what you do. He starts telling me, and I get really curious, and I'm asking him questions for like 3 days, and he's telling me all these things, and I'm like, this guy is brilliant. And I'm just laughing and asking more questions, and we're diving deep and we're connecting. And like that to me brings me joy. I love being curious about people. I love experimenting, or rather expanding on who is this person in front of me? What are they all about? What makes them tick? I love, being in nature. I love music. I love to sing. I love experimenting with different instruments, and the ones that I've been experimenting with soon to be. I bought it. I haven't played it yet. I've got this tin whistle. I saw an Instagram ad, and it's like I think it's an Irish instrument. It looks like this little tin whistle with a, tip on the end. And this ad caught my attention. This guy's playing it, and it sounded like a leprechaun fairy from Lord of the Rings or something. It was so epic. And I was like, I have to learn how to play that. So stuff like that. I love like fantasy things. I love watching, reading. Let's see. Big reader. Yeah, big reader. Love to learn. I love to rock climb, and so that brings me a lot of joy. I love just getting to meet new people. I really value my friendships, since I just got to spend some time with my great friends in Arizona, and we got to be with them for just hours on end. And it's the kind of friendships that it feels like 20 minutes went by, but yet a 9-hour conversation. And I love that. And beyond that, I'll close it on, I love to love, and it brings me joy to just be in that space of love, both with myself and with other people, and just in the moment. There's like, spirituality is so near and dear to my heart, and bringing that into every single moment. And the background of my phone,
wow,
it says, practice seeing God in everyone and everything. And that has been what I strive to do, every moment of my life. And so with that in mind, that brings me joy. And so when I can see the light, the divinity in everything all around me, whether it be a person, an animal, a tree, a rock, it just creates such a reverence for life. And that has me move through my moment to moment, going back to Manny's question of making time count. It has me experiencing life in a very much, not perpetual, because I have my moments, but in general, more often than not, I'm in a state of peace, love, joy, and oneness. And that to me is a beautiful space to be in that brings me a lot of joy.
Wow, bullseye. And I love how you talk about real friendships and true friendships never die, because it's true. And I can't help but think about some of the friendships that I have, and being able to pick up where we left off, even though we may not speak to each other every single day because real life happens. Yeah. But I think it is important to pick up where you left off in regards to friendship. So thank you, Dr. Jamil. And now Manny, he's answered our question here as far as what does hashtag MTC mean. And he says it's making time count. Thanks so much, Manny. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Yes. Now, Dr. Jamil, thank you so much for sharing the front cover of your phone as well. And you talk about God a tad bit there. I want to circle back in regards to God. And what if someone is looking to build a relationship with Him? What message do you have for that particular individual in regards to where they can start?
So to me, there's a quote, I think it's from Gandhi. I believe it is. If it's not, it's somebody similar stature, but assuming it's Gandhi. Gandhi said, if you don't see God in the face of the next person that you meet, you shouldn't bother looking for him anywhere else. And it's coming from a space of, to me, there's two entry points. They're really one and the same, but from a human vantage point, there's two entry points to God. One is out there and one is in here. And so if you want to deepen your connection with God, you either go within or you find God and the divinity all around you. And so can you see God in the eyes of the next person that you speak to? Can you see God in the person that you are judging? You know, in the Bible, there's that line, I see myself as more spiritual than religious, but I've studied as many of the world religions as I can. And in the Bible, there's a line, bless those who curse you, that Jesus says. And so, you know, bless those who persecute you, things of that nature. It's easy, or easier at least for most people, to connect to, okay, I get it. I can see God in that person that I love. Wonderful. Can you see God in the person that you hate? Can you see God in the person that you've been having a lot of issues with? Because if the moment you can do that, it's like there's two entry points. Either you say, I really love myself, but I'm having an issue out there. Great. So find God in here. And when you find God in here, you'll find it out there. Or if you're like, I don't really love myself and I'm having issues there. Great. Find God all around you and you'll start to notice God within. One of my favorite words is enthusiasm, and it comes from en theos. It's a Greek word, or ante theos, and it means the God within. When you radiate enthusiastically, you're radiating the divinity, that divine spark that makes you uniquely you. You know, you can look how you look, earrings, hair, you can makeup, you can change it all. But anyone could like make their hair look a certain way, do all that. But the thing that makes Gigi, Gigi, that's your soul. That's the divinity. That's the spark. That cannot be replicated. There's only one of that. And when you actually radiate that, not only people get to experience that divinity within you, but it's like that Marianne Williamson quote, the end of it, when you, I'm going to paraphrase it, when you give yourself permission to be seen and to put yourself out there, you unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. Nobody needs your permission to be themselves, but most of us walk around our day-to-day life, in my experience, believing that we're not enough, that we have to hide our light, dim our shine, be a certain way to fit in. And when you meet somebody that's just willing to just be themselves and have fun and play all out, that gives you permission where you feel safer to do that yourself because you feel like you won't be judged. And so to me, I love, you know, Jesus says God is love. And so when you come from that space, be loving as a verb. Be loving with everything, everyone that you come into contact with. If I'm walking and I bang into a plant, I apologize. It just comes out. I go, so sorry. You know, it's like, be loving with everyone. Be loving with everything. This is a practice. I'm not saying this is easy, but it's simple. Practice love. The more you, the Dalai Lama has a quote, something to the extent of, like, my religion is kindness. What if your religion was love? What if you just showed up with love in your heart for everyone? If you do that, you are, in my experience at least, honoring and following all the religions. If you show up with love, you'll treat others, love others as I have loved you. You will bless those who persecute you. You will do all the things that all these amazing spiritual teachers throughout the ages have said. And so to me, connecting with God is not necessarily anywhere you have to go. You connect right there and then, because and theos, the God within, there's this spark, the soul is right here. There's nowhere to go. And at the same time, you, just like words don't have the meaning unless you give them meaning, you might find your connection with God at a certain place. It could be at a church or a temple or a synagogue or a mosque or whatever. And that's beautiful. If that's where somebody has their connection, amen to that. And maybe you have that connection in your backyard. Maybe you have that connection when you're hugging somebody. Maybe you have that connection in laughter. And that's beautiful too. And there's a It was a Hindu yogi, I believe. He was speaking with somebody, and the person was asking him a very specific question. And he said, it was something to the extent of, the person believed God was only in like one location. And the yogi said, can you help me understand where is God not? And it was that idea that, God is the all. God is everywhere. And so, yeah, we may have a specific place that we go to worship or to pray or to pay respects. And that's beautiful. And if that works for somebody, awesome, keep doing it. And if we can create that connection in every moment, in my mind, why not? Even better.
That's right. Love conquers hate. And I want to circle back to what you said, and because it's so important as far as our faith here, and not just that, but letting go and letting him and staying true to God's character. Bullseye, I think you hit it on the nail, because it's so important, no matter how someone treats you, to stay true to God's character and treat others the way you want to be treated, period. Very powerful, Dr. Jamil. Thank you so much for covering that a little bit here today. Now, Dr. Jamil.
If I may respond to just what you just said. There's a quote, a mentor of mine shared it with me. Let me see if I can get it from memory. Excuse me.
Yeah, take your time.
I believe the quote is, how you treat me is a reflection of you. How I respond to you is a reflection of me. And so, like you just said, somebody could treat me really nasty and again, nasty is just a word. It's made up. Like, I have meaning that I give to that, right? So I'm judging it as nasty. So I am judging that this person's actions or behavior or language towards me was nasty, disrespectful, whatever it might be. Okay. Then the question becomes, is the Viktor Frankl stimulus response, there's a space. And most people are just, again, not intentional about it, so they don't realize that there's a space. Most people react. They don't respond. So you could be nasty to me, but my response is, how do I choose to be in response? Martin Luther King Jr. has got a quote, hate cannot drive out hate. Well, he says, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. You do not match hate with hate, eye for an eye kind of thing. That doesn't work. But you can, like, if I have darkness and you bring more darkness, we're just more dark. But the moment you shine your light, the darkness goes away. Jesus on the cross getting crucified, what does he say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
That's right.
That to me, in any religion, that way of being is worshipped. Because that way of being is the ultimate form of understanding, compassion, and forgiveness. Because it's saying, this is my own interpretation, my paradigm, no matter what somebody does, all behavior makes perfect sense given the level of consciousness in the moment and the thinking you have in the moment that you believe and feels real to you. You look back to anything that you've done in the past that you look back with some regret. I don't know why I did that. What do you often say? What was I thinking? Well, because whatever you were thinking at the time made sense to you. That's why you did it. Nobody does something that made zero sense. It's like saying, hey, here's this action. If you take it, there's only pain and there's no benefit. You want to do it? Nobody does that. People only do things that they perceive are going to be beneficial, and often there's unintended consequences and pain that they experience in hindsight. So with that in mind, here is this person, in my interpretation, being crucified, physically being killed. People looking at him, like wanting him to die. And rather than judge the people, don't you guys know I'm trying to help? Like, why are you killing me? Instead, it's, here's these people who honestly believe that I am blaspheming against what they call the Most High, and that if they let this stand and they don't do anything about it, that's disrespectful to God. So because they love God, they want to kill me. So in that interpretation, it's Father, forgive them, because they actually believe what they're doing is right. And so, yeah, I'm physically being killed. There's a consequence to this situation, but I know that they're not actually doing it with only malice. They're doing it actually thinking this is a good thing or it needs to be done. So in that same kind of way, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. Every one of us can apply that, whatever our religion is or no religion. Life, source, internal wisdom. forgive that person, because whatever they're doing, they actually believe either they have no choice, or they believe that it's a good thing, or they believe that it has to be done for whatever the reason. And I have a different interpretation, which is why I don't see it that way, but they don't see it that way. And so we're all living in our own creation of reality. There's one world and there's 8 billion or so different realities, because nobody sees life the same way. There's an old expression, we don't see life the way it is, we see it the way we are. Because right now, as an example, I'm looking at you,
Right.
but I'm not really looking at you. There's light entering into my eyes, and that light is essentially, I can't see it. It's entering into my eyes, and there's reflections bouncing off things, and in my brain, there's an image being created and it's being projected out. So I think I'm seeing you out here, but I'm actually seeing you in my head. So in that same kind of way, here I am having a life experience, something's happening. I'll tie it into this. Yeah. There's like a murder, let's say, and at the scene of the crime, there's 40 eyewitnesses, and the police officer interviews all 40. And of course, all 40 saw the same thing, so we get one story, right? No, you get 40 different eyewitness testimonies that all say something different. There's similarities, but one person says, it was a really tall guy who did it, but the person who said that was short. The other person goes, yeah, average height, because that person was the same height as that guy. It's like, the car was blue. It was actually green. It was just the angle, and it was dark. And so it's like everyone's got a different interpretation of what's going on. So something happens and we filter it through. This is all unconscious. You're not doing this per se. It's unconscious. Our life experience, our conditioning, our traumas, our programming, our beliefs, everything gets filtered through that first, unconsciously. Then we respond. And so, of course, your response is going to be completely different than somebody else. And so when we realize nobody else experiences life the same way you do, then instead I have a way of being that I choose to embody. My way is a way, not the way. Because my way is one of many. My way is one of the infinite number of ways in these 8 billion realities. And I'm not going to say it's better than your way. There are times where my way is working for me. Awesome. I'm going to keep doing it. But there are times where your way will work better than my way. So in those moments, am I willing to be humble enough and open enough to say, you know what? Gigi gave me a good piece of advice right there. I'm going to try that on because she's getting the result that I want and I'm not getting it. So my way is not working in this specific situation. And so when we come from that space, everyone's got a different reality. We can be so much more forgiving, understanding, and compassionate. There's still consequences to our actions. We're still responsible for what we do. The energy you put out comes back. But if we come from that space of, okay, it's like biblically, it's like judge not, lest you too be judged. It's coming from that space of, I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on being the most loving, caring, compassionate version of me. I'm going to choose to do the most amount of good that I can possibly do. And if somebody else is going to act however they act, that's got nothing to do with me. That's between them and God. I'm going to do my thing. I'm not going to judge them because they judged me. I'm not going to be nasty to them because they're nasty to me. And in those moments where I have my human experience and I forget and I do respond in a nasty way, I do my best to catch it as quickly as possible, apologize, ask for forgiveness, and then learn from it as an experimenter, bringing it spiraling up full circle in our conversation. As I know better, hopefully, I choose to do better. And it's coming from that space of not trying to be perfect with it. In my mind, perfect implies done. It's like as a human being, we're not going to be perfect, but we can continue to strive. We can continue to spiral up and get better. And we have some wonderful mentors and resources along the way of people who the external reality for me in all of my studies, as well as in my experience, is a reflection of the internal. Because just like I see you in my mind and I project it out, something happens out there and it really bothers me. But somebody else saw that same thing and it didn't bother them at all. It bothered me because I've got something inside to handle. I've got something inside that hasn't been loved, that hasn't been accepted, that hasn't been integrated. So in that way, the external world serves as a mirror or reflection. Where am I not loving myself? Where am I judging others? But that's actually a judgment against me. Whatever I judge you for, it's because I judge me for it. I don't judge people for things I don't judge myself for. If I'm judging you, it's because I judge me in that same way. And so in that same way, everything serves as your teacher. Everything serves as a way closer to God. Everything serves as a way closer to love. So that there's a Rumi quote. He's a Sufi poet from, I think, like 800 years ago. And I'm going to paraphrase it. He said, "Seek not for love, seek out all the walls or the obstacles you've built to keep love out." Love is always here. The question is, are you experiencing it? And if you're not experiencing it, it's because you've blocked it in your interpretation because of the stories that you're buying into. Right. And the moment you can release that, you experience the love that's always here, the presence of God that's always here. And that to me is a beautiful reminder, because the idea of a second chance, we always have second chances. You have an infinite number of second chances, in the sense that in this moment, I was not loving. In this moment, I was judgmental. I was nasty. I blasphemed. I did whatever the word we want to use is. Great. Now that I'm aware of it, what do I want to do in the next moment? Do I want to atone for that? Do I want to forgive for that? Do I want to show up and try to be as loving as possible? Or do I want to continue to perpetuate that and judge myself and go down that spiral? You always have the opportunity to fix it. It's, are you doing it? And to me, that's a beautiful thing, because there's no such thing as you're too far gone. You know, another biblical reference, I forgot the name of it, but there's that party and people arrive in like the 3rd hour, the 4th hour, and there's people who arrive in the 11th hour when the party's about to end, and the master of the house welcomes them just as openly and beautifully as the master welcomed the people who arrived early. And some of the people that arrived early are like, whoa, I got here when you said to get here. They got here like 9 hours late. Why are you being so nice to them? And the master's like, that's between me and them. That's got nothing to do with you. You know, it's like, we got to mind our own business in that sense. And it's like, you know, one of my mentors, Byron Katie, she talks about there's 3 types of business: my business, your business, and God's business. We get in trouble when we're trying to think about God's business or other people's business. So right. It's like, why did that earthquake happen? And what about this? And what about that? I have no idea why that happened, but I can't do anything about it. And that's just going to make me feel worse. Or I can't believe Gigi is doing this and doing this. My mind is in everybody else's business except for mine. That's why my life is falling apart. That's why I don't have the results that I want, because I'm not focusing on me. And using that like airplane metaphor of, if the plane's going down and the oxygen mask drops, you put yours on first, right, so that you can then help everybody else. If you try to put everybody else's on first and you pass out halfway through and now you're just like dead weight on somebody's lap, you're not helpful. And so in that same kind of way, focus on you. The best thing you could do is be the most loving, whole, complete may not be the right word there, the most loving and, let's say, integrated, compassionate, understanding version of you who wants to spread and shine your light, that divinity, that entheos, that divinity that is you. If you share that, some people aren't going to want it. That's fine. There's a beautiful quote that I love. You can be the ripest, juiciest peach in the entire world, and there's still going to be somebody out there who hates peaches. If I'm the peach, it's the ripest, juiciest peach, I'm not going to throw myself with the people that want watermelon. But there's millions of people that are looking for peaches. And if I'm the ripest and the juiciest and the best tasting, they're going to want it. And so in that same way, you have one job: be the best version of you know how to be. And as you know better, do better. Be the most loving version of you know how to be, starting with you. And when you know better, do better. And when you fall off the horse metaphorically and you're judging yourself or other people, the moment you recognize it, which might be moments, minutes, hours, days later, clean it up. Clean it up with yourself and clean it up with the other person. Give and receive that gift of forgiveness and move on and keep living your life the best way you know how. And that to me is this recipe for a really beautiful life. You know, and so I'll pause there because I took that question in a million different ways.
Oh, it's great. I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. Very powerful. And thank you so much for covering forgiveness, because forgiveness truly matters. Now, Manny says This was a great interview filled with positivity, spirituality, and connection. Thank you for allowing me to walk with you. Thank you, Manny, for walking with us. We appreciate you.
I love the throwback to the name of the show. That's good job, Manny.
I know, right? Manny's so wise. Yeah. I love it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about mistakes. I want to circle back here and talk about mistakes.
Yeah.
What if an individual has, for example, they've done a mistake and now they feel like it's the end of the world? What message do you have for that individual?
Yeah. So not to sound like a broken record, I'm going to go back to our language, right? Again, I look at each of us, my own paradigm, not saying it's right, but just the way I see it. I see us all as spiritual beings having a human experience. Excuse me. Because of that, when someone goes, I made a mistake, I know what they mean from a human perspective. It's like, I did something wrong. I did something I wasn't supposed to do. But the thing is that in my paradigm, there's no such thing as a mistake. There's an action that I took that in the moment made perfect sense. In the moment, I had a limited perspective. In the moment, I was in fear. I was in ignorance. I was in pain. I was insecure. And my actions came from that. If I plant the seed of a blueberry or an apple, let's say, if I plant an apple seed, I get an apple tree. I don't get a blueberry bush because apples come from apple seeds. Well, if I plant the seed of, let's say, fear, insecurity, discouragement, jealousy, of course, the actions that sprout from that are not going to be my highest and greatest good. And so whatever I did, I did. If I call it a mistake, to me, it carries with it some degree of judgment versus if I were to say, I did what I did. Again, no failure, only feedback. I did what I did. Life is presenting me with feedback, either internally, externally, or both. Internal feedback is I feel a certain way. Maybe I feel some guilt about what I did. Externally, maybe somebody has some opinions about how I showed up and they're not too happy about that. Maybe I lost my job. Maybe something happened out there that I am labeling as bad. But the moment I call it a mistake, it's like saying I did something I shouldn't have done. But what you're doing there is present you is judging past you for not knowing what present you knows. There's that old expression, hindsight is 20/20. It's right. Easy to look back at my life and say, oh, wow, if only I did this, this, and this. What was I thinking? I made so many mistakes. But that's a luxury that you have in the present moment to look at the past and call it that. But what if instead you just realize, see it for what it is? Present moment you has learned from your life experience, and you just see it differently now than you saw it before. It wasn't a mistake. It was just you did what you did. And in the moment, it was the best you had. Sometimes the best you have in the moment is 1 out of 10. It's really limited because you're so rooted in that moment in pain, insecurity, fear, etc. So you're not going to show up at your best. And I think if we judge ourselves for that, it just makes it worse. So I think your question was like, what do you do if you made a mistake and you're kind of really like holding on to that? I would just let go of the idea of a mistake. And I would just come from the space of forgiveness to me and compassion and grace. I often tell people your next breakthrough is never going to come from more judgment. It'll only come from higher levels of self-compassion, forgiveness, grace, and understanding. And so the moment I realize, wow, I can see right now something I did not see 3 hours ago. I can see something right now I did not see yesterday. I behaved a certain way. Somebody that I care about, they're not having a good experience, and in their human paradigm, it's because of me, right? Or I created a certain result, and I realized, whoa, I invested some money, lost all of it. Now, did I make a mistake? Well, in hindsight, of course I did. That investment, why would I invest it there? Because it was clearly a scam. But did you invest the money knowing it was a scam? No, you invested the money with full confidence that you're about to be a millionaire. Like you thought this was great. Like someone gave me a tip and like this is going to be a great like investment. It wasn't a mistake. It was the best you knew how to do in the moment. And so you just keep like life is in my opinion, it's a series and a process that never ends. And it's a unfolding of act, learn, forgive. Act, learn, forgive. And it just never stops. And you just keep doing that, the best you know how to do. And the more you do it with yourself, the easier it'll be to do it to others. If somebody goes, I have a really hard time forgiving myself, practice forgiving other people, it'll get easier to forgive you. Or you flip it. I have a really easy time forgiving others, but I have a hard time forgiving myself. That might have been the same I just said. Either way, forgive yourself to forgive others to forgive yourself. It's the same muscle that you're strengthening of forgiveness. And so the more you forgive other people, like the more I can say, Gigi, I forgive you because I realize, like, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. I realize, and there's no superiority here. There's no like better or worse. There's just a soul to soul. I realize that just like me, you were doing the best you knew how to do in the moment. And I happened to have an experience that I did not want to experience. And I realized that I can, my level of grace, understanding, compassion, I can see that you didn't mean it. And even if you think you did, even if someone comes at you maliciously, I hurt you and I wanted to. Somebody goes, what about something like that? How do you forgive that? Because that person is so lost in the illusion of pain, ignorance, fear, all these things, that they actually think that they want to be evil in that sense. But nobody is born that way. There's no child going, I'm born and my life goal is to be the emissary of all darkness. Like, that doesn't happen. Right. And so that fear, that racism, that hatred, that whatever, these are all learned behaviors. And so when we realize that, okay, wow, just like me, this person has been taught some things, experienced some things, had life experience and made a certain conclusion about it. It's not right. It's just one of an infinite number of conclusions they could have reached, and that's the one they chose. And so they chose that one and they made it right. They made it the way. So this happened. What does it mean? So for example, if you and I started this at 5 o'clock my time.
Yes.
And so when we started, let's imagine you were late. You weren't, you were early, but let's say you were late.
Right.
And then someone goes, Gigi is late. What does that mean? This is where humans get in trouble. Well, what it means is she's late, period. It doesn't mean anything else. But what do? It means she disrespected me. It means that she didn't value my time. It means that this wasn't as important to her as it was to me. You see what we do? And then now I feel bad about it. And then you send me a message, hey, you mind if we reschedule? Now she wants to reschedule, but I get all upset.
Very funny.
But what happens if I go, hold on a second, Gigi's late. You know, I've known her for a little bit. That doesn't seem like her. I hope she's okay. Mm. And then I send a message and you go, hey, my internet went out. Or, hey, you know, there's an emergency and we're in the hospital and I'm so sorry, it slipped my mind. Yeah, that's okay. Like, my heart's with you. I hope everything. Why does our mind just default to the worst case scenario? Because we've been conditioned to do that. And so, please forgive me, I lost track of the question. In that little, hold on, if you can just remind me where I was going with that. We were talking about.
Yes, and it's a mouthful, but I tell you what, it's very powerful. And adding to that here, meeting people where they are, I think it's so important. Yeah. What message do you have for individuals who feel as though they're not sure of how to meet people where they are? How do you meet people where they are, Dr. Jamil?
That's an interesting question. So how do you meet people where they are? So first you have to attempt as well as you can to understand where they are. And how do you understand where somebody's at? You got to be present with them. You have to be open. Like, most of us have already concluded where somebody is before we've even like spoken to them. So
to your point, which is exactly what you were talking about, right? Yeah. Not assuming, but actually listening into folks.
Yeah. So if I want to understand where Gigi's at, as an example, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to actually listen. I'm not going to pretend to know your answer ahead of time, because even if I try to predict it and I happen to be right, then I delude myself into thinking that every other prediction is right when the majority are going to be wrong. And so if I can show up and actually just be present with somebody and say, hey, you know, I may not word it like this, but in the context of our conversation, I'll say it. How's life occurring for you? You know, how is your life occurring in this moment? Oh, well, you know, life's going great for all these reasons. Or, you know, I'm really struggling right now for all these reasons. Oh, I hear you. Like, you know, would you mind, like, if you want to, like, tell me about that. And then I hear it. Oh, wow. And then that happened. And what did that mean to you? Well, it meant this, this, and this. Got it. Now, depending on the relationship that I have with this person, the kind of stuff that I'm sharing with you all in this conversation, this isn't what I do to random people on the street. This is like, I do this with my clients. And so I don't have permission to be this way with most people. So I can think this, but I'm going to be present to, okay, in this person's reality, they are feeling really stressed out and it's because their job. Got it. Or this person's really angry and their partner made them feel that way. Got it. That's where they're at right now. I'm not going to tell them, no one can make you feel anything. And, no, it's like, I'm not going to go there. But from that space of, you can understand where somebody's at and meet them where they're at by asking and by actually wanting to know. And don't try to fix it unless they're asking for help. If I am able to like ascertain where you're at through listening, through presence, through all these things, then the next step is not where you're at is bad or wrong and where I'm at is better, and let me pull you to where I'm at. People usually resist that unless they're asking for it. It's got it. This is where you're at. If you're hurting, how can I help? My heart goes out to you. My prayers are with you. If I can be of help in any way to lighten that burden, lighten that load, I'm here for you. Now, I can have in my mind that I know that, for example, pain versus suffering. I make a distinction there. Pain is something that you experience in the moment. The easiest example of it would be physical pain. So if I have a knife and I stab myself in the hand, all my nerve endings are firing and my pain receptors are going off. That's pain. Suffering is the story that you tell yourself about the pain. That's why suffering can last hours, months, decades after the pain is resolved. And so if someone's suffering, human to human, soul to soul, my heart goes out to them. And I hope that I can be of any support if they're open to that. And if they're not open to that, I hope that they get whatever they need as a lesson from this experience and that they have the, let's say, healing that they look for. I'm not going to tell them, all suffering is created in the mind and they're buying into a story. And no, that's being a robot. I'm not going to do that to anybody. But I am going to connect with somebody in the moment and what are they ready for? And how do I know what they're ready for? I'm going to ask, how can I help? If at all, do you need anything right now? And depending on their level of receptivity, I take certain people further and certain people, it stops right there because they're not ready for anything. At that point, I pray for them. I wish them well. I send love to them in my energy work. I direct energy if I have permission. If not, I just pray and I send love. And from that space, I just do what I can to meet people where they're at. When I have a client, certain clients of mine, they've done years or decades of self-help and personal development and all these things. And they have a certain foundation that's really, profound and it's developed and it's beautiful. They still have their issues and that's where I can help them. But I don't have to, I can meet them at a certain level that's different than if they've never read a book and they're a beginner. I'm not going to treat them, I will treat them the same way from a love perspective, from a respect as a human being perspective, right. But I'm not going to share the same things necessarily because they may not be ready for it. Like you don't give the third grader the same assignment that you give the freshman in college. It's a different part of the journey. One's not better than the other. There's just an earlier and a later version. And so that's the way I'd answer that for right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. Now, Dr. Jamil, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
So some of these answers are going to be similar to what I shared before because it all, connects. Right. How do you walk with purpose and live a life of happiness? First, it's to tune into, one of the top 5 regrets of the dying. There was a hospice nurse, I think her name is Bonnie Wire or something like that. She was wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And she was interviewed. And in this she did a study. And the study was on patients that were at the end of their life. They were in hospice. And she wanted to find out what were their top regrets. And then she figured them all out, averaged them out, and found the top 5. The number 1 regret of the dying across all the people she interviewed, excuse me.
No, you're good. Take your time.
And the number 1 regret is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So how do you walk with purpose? How do you live a life of happiness? First, you check in. Am I living my life or am I living somebody else's version of my life? am I actually happy? Now, no one's happy all the time. So no emotion is ever felt all the time. Whenever someone's goal is, I want to be happy all the time, they're destined to fail. That doesn't exist. You can be at peace almost all of the time, because peace doesn't require anything other than an acceptance of the moment. Something can go the way you don't want it to go, and you can be at peace with that. So peace is a closer approximation to what you can feel more often than not. But with that in mind, how would somebody feel happy? First, define it. No word has any meaning except for the meaning we give it. If I say, what does success mean? I'm going to get 8 billion different answers. What does happiness mean for you? And when you can define that, are you mapping your actions and your decisions and all of your things towards that? Now, you may say it's external. There's an external reference of happiness or peace or whatever, or success, and there's an internal reference. Some people, they'll say, I'll be happy when, and this is where we create a rule again. Yes. I will be happy when this happens. So what does that mean? I can't feel it now because my made up rule blocks it now because I haven't crossed this arbitrary threshold. This is where I'm at now, not having the house, the money, the reputation, the car, the whatever. And this is the threshold where I do have it. And until I cross that line, I can't feel happy. I can't feel successful. I made that up. Now that'll be real for me until it's not. Because there's millionaires and billionaires who have everything you think you need to be happy, and some of them are and some of them aren't. What does that tell you? It's got nothing to do with the money. There's people who make less than $2.50 a day. Some of them are miserable and depressed, and some of them are really, really happy, at peace, and fulfilled. Nothing to do with the money. That doesn't mean money can't make life easier. It can. We live in a world that money drives a lot of it. And so, yeah, you're in a beautiful home. I see behind you, you got a piano, you got lights above you. It's like, that is, money affords that. Wonderful. But, in the Bhagavad Gita, one of the holy books in India, there's a line that I love, and it says, detachment is not that you own nothing, it's that nothing owns you. You don't have to give up all your stuff because the stuff doesn't have the meaning. But when you are attached to the stuff where you think, I need this house to be happy, that car out there, that's my dream car. That's the sign that I made it. I'm successful. What happens if you lost the car?
Right.
Are you a failure now? It's like, by your definition, yeah, if that's what you're going to show up as. Again, no judgment on it. You can do that, but it will lead to a certain life experience you probably don't want. So first step is, what is happiness? And I encourage you to have an internal reference for that, because the external reference, the external world, from an energy perspective, there's more earth element in it. And so because of that, it takes time. So for example, if I want to have a certain net worth and I don't have it now, I have to build that up. That'll take however long it takes. But if my happiness is internally referenced and I say, I will feel happy when I can look myself in the mirror and say, I'm proud of how you showed up today. I could do that right now. Because even if the entire day I've not been proud of how I've shown up, the moment I own it and I apologize, let's say, to somebody, now I can look myself in the mirror and say, you know what? You caught it and you made it right. And I'm proud of you. Now I'm happy because that was my definition, right? So make it easy. There's rules to the game and you're the one who made the rules up because we're all playing a different game. So the question is, what are the rules that you've been playing by? Do they serve you? If it's, You be happy when I'm a billionaire, and then 99.9% of the planet is screwed, if that's what the rule is. But if you make it way easier, like I'm proud of myself, or I will feel at peace when I can just be present in the moment and focus on my breathing. You can do that right now. And so make it easy to win in terms of feeling whatever you want to feel. And then get clear, am I actually living my own version of life, not other people's version of my life? You said walk with purpose. So what does that mean? Purpose is not something that is given to you. Purpose is created. You determine what your purpose is. And so when we come from that space of, here's my life, hourglass got turned, I don't know how much sand is left, what's worth the rest of my life? There's certain things, certain contributions, certain experiences that you will deem meaningful. Now, somebody else will not say that's meaningful. There's a charity that you really like and you want to donate it to it. Somebody else doesn't care about that charity. But that's beautiful because maybe there's a different charity they care about that you don't care about. So now both charities get help. Right? So it's like there's a certain life experience, there's traveling, there's people you want to meet, there's activities, there's hobbies, there's contributions, there's a business you want to build, an impact you want to make. There's something that you want to do that is real for you, is meaningful for you. So when I said earlier, walk with purpose, my version of that is create a meaningful life. How do you do that? Create a meaningful moment, create a meaningful now. So how do I walk with purpose now? What's purpose for me? What's meaningful for me? What's my version of life? What's happiness for me? What's success for me? And then am I actually following my rules? Am I playing my game or am I trying to win somebody else's game? Most of us are playing by society's rules, social media's rules, like Hollywood's rules. And so I got to look a certain way in order to be good enough. I have to have a certain bank balance, house size, car, whatever, in order to be successful. So everyone feels like a failure. Everybody feels insecure. Everybody feels insignificant. The moment you let that go, it's not bad. Have all the money you want. Have the biggest house you want. Have 1,000 houses. Beautiful. Like, I'm all for the abundance. But do you need it? Like, does it own you or do you own it? And the moment it owns you, you're a slave to it. And the moment you're a slave to it, it's like, I need it to be happy. Now you're not going to be walking with purpose and doing all these things. But if you can come from the space of I walk with purpose because I know who I am in my heart and I be it to the best of my ability. Now you could have no money. You could be homeless walking down the street, but you're not really homeless because you will feel at home wherever you are. And when you come from that space, that to me would be one example of, there's a term that is used often from a spiritual perspective of enlightenment. And another way of saying that is atonement, and atonement is at one-ment. It's when you come into the oneness. You know, Jesus says, he says, the kingdom of heaven is in the heart of man. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. Someone says to the Buddha, how do I reach nirvana? Which is like their version, let's say, of heaven. And he'll say, you get there by realizing you're already there. You know, and so you come from that space of, what if, I use this metaphor, I love it. Imagine there's a clock on the wall and it's ticking. Now, if you were having a party and there's music and glasses clinking and people talking, you don't hear that clock. You see it, you can see it moving, but there's zero sound from your vantage point. Then at the end of the night, imagine you've never seen a clock before. You've never heard a clock before. And this is your friend's house. And you're helping your friend clean up. And everybody leaves and it finally gets quiet. And you just hear tick, tick, tick. And it's loud. And you're like, what is that sound? And your friend goes, that's the clock. And you go, clocks tick? Since when? I've been looking at that clock all night. It hasn't made a sound once. Oh no, it's always ticking. It's always making that sound. You were just distracted, so you didn't hear it. So you mean that's been doing that loudly and I wasn't aware of it? Yep. In the same way, peace, always here. Love, always here. Whatever you call success, like, rather, let's say, true, I'll say this way because I don't want it to be like my way. Unconditional love, unconditional peace is always available to you in this moment. If you're not experiencing it, it's because you're distracted. You're all caught up in the story. You're all caught up in what you think you need to have. There is always better than here, because wherever we are right now, because of our conditioning, is insufficient. It's never enough. So Dr. Wayne Dyer's got a quote that I love. He says, where is the peace and more is better? More isn't better. More is just more. More isn't bad. More is just more. But when you think there is better than here, wherever you are is always insufficient. Where you are is always deficit. And the moment you can realize, you know what if where I'm at right now is perfect? With whatever my money, whatever my home situation, my bad hair day, my empty fridge of no food, whatever it is, that doesn't mean it's your preference. That's different. But what if it was just perfect because it's what is? Byron Katie, I mentioned her earlier. She has a book that I really love called Loving What Is. And the idea is that my business, your business, and God's business, the present moment is what it is. You can argue with it, but you lose every time. Because if like Werner Erhard, another mentor of mine, he says, if you want to see how much life, source, God, universe cares about your opinion, walk outside in the middle of the night, look up at the stars, and complain about all the things about life that need to change. Then wake up in the morning and see what changed. And it's just like, nothing changed. But it's because you have to be the one to change it. God's given you all the power, but you got to go first. It's like saying, God, please give me the strength to deal with this hardship. You already have it. Everything you'd ever need, you already have. Now, if it helps you in a personal way to ask for it and to pray and to receive it, beautiful. But it's already there. And so if we come from that space of, it's like everything that you really need, you already have. By definition, I need air right now. Otherwise, my physical body would no longer be here. It's provided in abundance. Everything I actually need, I have. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I don't need this home. If this was my house, I could say I need it, but it's more of an emotional attachment to it. Would I survive in a smaller place? Yeah. If I was homeless and I was sleeping under a bridge, not my preference, but would I survive? At least for a period of time, yes, because I don't need the house or the car or the whatever. I could bike, I could walk, I could take a car, a train, a bus. We tell ourselves stories of all these things we need. And then when we don't have it, I don't have what I need. That's why I feel this way. You've convinced yourself that you need so much more than you actually do. Now, need and want are different. Want whatever you want. That's beautiful. Have like the word desire, and I believe it's Latin, it means of the Father. Desire is beautiful. Desire is the source of creation. You desired to get into a relationship, and then you did. You desired to contribute to that charity, and then you did. Desire is the spark of any action that you would ever take. Nothing bad about it, but attachment is different. Attachment is I need it. Like without it, so it's not money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. But another interpretation of that, it's the attachment to money is the root of all evil. Valuing money over people, putting money first. Money is the king. That's where you get in trouble. That's where you start doing things, taking some actions that you wouldn't do if you were coming from love. People attach to the external, and it's really obvious, at least in my paradigm, I'm not saying it's right, but I have found a level of peace that is so much more profound than I have ever had in my entire life. And this paradigm, from all the different spiritual practices, world religions, things that I could find, life experience, they've all brought me to this point. And again, not saying it's better, worse, right, or wrong. It's just my way right now. But this way has happened to work for a lot of people I shared it with. And so I share it here in the event that some people are going to listen to this and they're going to be ready for it. Again, no judgment on it. They're going to be ready to receive it, which means they'll apply and they will likely experience what I'm talking about. Other people, they're not ready for this. And this is going to sound weird, or this is going to sound crazy. Not bad, not better, worse, bad, wrong. It's just, they're not ready for it yet. And maybe one day somebody else will share something similar in a different way, different language, different package. And they'll go, that was amazing. Because they weren't ready to hear it from me, but they needed to hear it from somebody else. My way is not the way. My way just works for me. I share what works for me, and in the hopes that it might help somebody else to make their journey somewhat easier.
That's right. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamil. And now Manny says, time is ticking. What are you going to do with the time you have left? This moment is what it is. Yes. Thank you, Manny.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And thank you, Dr. Jamil. Now, do you have any last words for the audience?
What comes to mind is there's a word, beautiful. And I love breaking that word up. Be you to full. So what is beautiful? It's when you be the fullest expression of you. It's when you entheos, you radiate, you shine the light that is you. You live from love, not from fear. You live from faith, not from fear. Excuse me. And again, whoever is listening, this works for no matter where you are, what you believe. Have faith in a higher power, have faith in yourself, have faith in your ability to figure it out. Excuse me, I have hiccups for some reason. but we come from that place of be you to full, get clarity on what about my life is not working to the degree that I would like it to be working. Then own it. How am I creating that? My marriage is falling apart. Ego wants to blame it on the other person. Where am I not being the partner I could be being? My finances aren't where I want it to be. Where am I not doing what it takes? Where am I not putting out the value, inviting people? Where is my service not good enough? Like, own it. Like, you're overweight relative to where you want to be. How'd that happen? Like, there's things that you did and didn't do. Own it. The moment you own it, truth sets you free if you act on it. I remember hearing a mentor of mine say, the truth sets you free, but first it really pisses you off. I thought that was a fun way of putting it, but either way, own where you're at right now. What is not where you want it to be? Own what is where you want it to be too, and acknowledge yourself for that. This area of my life is working beautifully. Maybe my parenting, or with my partner, or maybe my level of fulfillment, whatever it might be. There's certain things that I'm really grateful for. I'm happy about. I'm proud of myself for. Awesome. Keep doing you. But there's certain things that your way is not working. Now you can either choose, and I say this again with love and respect to you, the listener, you can either choose to be like arrogant about it and say, my way is not working, but I'm just going to keep doing it. You're going to probably keep getting the same results or worse. Or you can say, I'm going to humble myself to say, maybe there's a better way out there, because I don't know everything. And nobody does. So I don't know everything. And as a result of that, I'm going to read a book or watch a video or ask for help. And I'm going to look for what is a new way, somebody who's gotten the result that I want. And that could be in any area of your life. So be beautiful. Re-listen to this conversation between Dr. Gigi and myself, because I think that there's so much life wisdom and experience that was being shared here today for both of us. And test it. Don't believe anything I said. Actually test it. But don't try it for like 5 minutes. You could, and you'll see something. But test it for a week. Test it for a month. Actually try out what I'm sharing. See if my way works for you. If it does, incorporate it. Don't give up your way. Incorporate my way and your way, and now there's like our way. and now you get to experience that. But I'll keep it at that for right now.
Thank you, Dr. Jamil, and thank you for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast. Now, where can the audience find you?
Yeah, thank you again. This has been so beautifully fun, Gigi. I really appreciate you, and thank you for the invitation. Our audience, first of all, Manny, thank you for the wonderful contributions and the questions and the statements, and I really appreciate any engagement always. And for our other listeners, thank you for taking the time. I believe that people get brought together for a reason. I believe that you're listening to this for a reason. And there's something here that you were ready to hear, whether all of it or whether one thing in particular, there was something here for you. Now, whether you received it or not is different. So you might need to re-listen, or you might be very aware. That last 90 minutes or so, that's why I needed to be here. That thing right there that Gigi said, or Jamil said, I needed that. Run with it. Actually apply. Make your life not necessarily better. Make it different. There isn't better than here, but there is different. And if you don't like here, let's make a new here. And so with that in mind, if anything I have shared has resonated with you, if there is a challenge, a problem that you're dealing with professionally, personally, when I think about my work, I said it earlier, what's that 10-year goal? What's that 10-year vision you have for your life? And what if I can help you make that real in 10 months? I've seen that happen over and over again. And it's never surprising in the sense of I didn't think it could happen. I knew it could happen. It was like pleasantly surprising in the sense of, I love this. Like, I love it when somebody gets what they want so much faster than they thought possible. The marriage is falling apart. Now they're more in love than ever before. Their health was falling apart. Now they're healthy again. Their business wasn't where they wanted to be, or they didn't even have a business, and it's where they want it to be, or they have the business and they're doing really well. I see that stuff all the time. So whether it's I have a goal, a dream, a vision, I want to accomplish it faster, or I've got this challenge and this problem and nothing's working and I just really want that support. Those are the two primary ways. And then I also do healing work where somebody shares with me, I've got this health issue. I've had autoimmune diseases patients, people who have had cancer, people who have had chronic pain. And I see it as a God coming through. I've been trained in energy work, and I've seen miracles happen in people's lives where autoimmune diseases, cancers, pains, things sometimes going away in a single session, things going away in a few days, in a few weeks, when they were told they had weeks to live. Can't ever promise that because it's not me doing it. It's, God's coming through. But I do come from that space of that's available. And most often people don't know that's available. And so I want to make sure people know that however I could be of service to you, however I can contribute my light to your life, I'd be more than happy to do that. We have it on the, it's on the screen right now. My website is just my name, jamilsayegh.com. You can check out the website. You can read up. What's the philosophy? What's the approach? What do I do? What's actually on offer? You can read up testimonials. You can see different people's experiences, people from all different walks of life, and see what's been created in their world. And if you read that and you go, this guy resonates with me, I like this website, I really like this podcast conversation between him and Dr. Gigi. Again, I believe things resonate for a reason. If I'm resonating with you, reach out. Let's have a 30-minute conversation. It's completely complimentary. And let's see what we can create together. And if it makes sense, we'll talk about what it looks like. And if not, at least you see yourself at a deeper level. You see what help you could benefit from getting if it's not going to be me. And we part as friends, or we work together and we create some miracles for your life.
Incredible. And now Manny says, yes, sir. And thank you, Gigi, to both of you. Keep making time count. Looking forward to staying connected. And again, Manny, thank you so much for listening in. And thank you to all of our listeners. We appreciate you. And make sure to check out Dr. Jamil on all of his social media platforms and also his website. That's JAMIL, S as in Sam, AYE, G for George, H for Hector.com. And Dr. Jamil, thank you again for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast. God bless you and be safe.
Thank you so much.